Okay, so let's set the scene. The date is February 28th, 2026. It's just after 8 a.m. in Tehran. And over the next few hours, well, the very idea of modern warfare is about to be completely and very violently rewritten. In what has to be one of the shortest windows imaginable, the United States and Israel launch over 1,100 kinetic strikes on Iranian soil. Now, this isn't some minor skirmish. This is an absolute deluge. It's the most intense air campaign the world has seen since the invasion of Iraq back in 2003. And the speed, it's just staggering. I mean, to put this into perspective for you, they dropped more precision ordnance before lunch on that one Saturday than they did during the entire 12-day war between Israel and Iran just a year before, in 2025. Just think about that.
But here's the thing. The truly revolutionary part of this whole operation was the target list. This wasn't about taking out power grids or bombing empty runways. No, the mission had a totally different and, frankly, much more precise goal. It's what military strategists call a neurological decapitation.
This wasn't some show of force. It was surgical extermination. When all the smoke cleared, something like 40 of Iran's absolute top officials were just gone. We're talking the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, along with his daughter, his son-in-law, and his grandkids in their compound, the Secretary of the Defense Council, the commander of the IRGC, the Minister of Defense, the entire top of the pyramid. It just vanished.
And you know, this is where the story gets really wild. For 40 years, Iran had been working under the assumption that this kind of attack was totally impossible. They had spent billions of dollars building what they thought was an impenetrable shadow empire, literally carving subterranean missile cities deep into mountains, and funding this whole ring of proxy militias to act as a physical shield.
So that's the big question, isn't it? They believed their geography, their network, all of it made them completely untouchable. They were prepped and ready for a 20th century war of grinding attrition. So how on earth was this absolute collapse even possible?
Well, the answer is that the failure wasn't about military hardware. Iran's collapse wasn't because they didn't have enough missiles or soldiers. It was the result of the single most catastrophic intelligence hemorrhage in the history of modern statecraft, period.
And this right here, this really gets to the heart of the problem. Iran spent decades building walls to keep the enemy out, but they totally failed to realize the enemy was already inside, listening, watching, and mapping every single move they made. So to really get how this happened, we've got to rewind the clock a little bit.
You see, this path to collapse didn't happen overnight. It really kicked off back in July 2024 with a huge canary in the coal mine. The Hamas leader, Ismail Haniyeh, is killed while he's sleeping inside a secure IRGC guesthouse in Tehran. This was proof that foreign intelligence didn't just breach their airspace, they had the floor plans. But instead of purging their ranks, Iran's security apparatus got obsessed with domestic dissent, all while foreign assets were systematically mapping the routines of their highest commanders. Then you get this reprieve in June 2025. Israel had a shot to take out Khamenei then, but Washington vetoed it. Iran mistook this political move for military invincibility, a fatal mistake in judgment that led them straight to the climax 8 months later.
What all of this really represents is a violent paradigm shift. It's a fundamental change in the rules of war that made Iran's entire defensive strategy completely obsolete.
The key idea here is something called signal supremacy. And look, this isn't about having more tanks or more planes. It's about having such complete intelligence from people on the ground and signals from the air that you achieve total situational awareness. You literally know where everyone is all the time. And when you can do that, your enemy's army becomes basically irrelevant.
This comparison just lays it all out perfectly. For centuries, right, war was about geography and armies. You invade, you grind down the enemy, you take over territory. But this 21st century model is all about signals and intelligence. The method is precision decapitation. You don't even need to fight the army, you just bypass the armor and sever the brainstem.
So what happens after the brainstem is severed? What does a country even look like in the immediate aftermath of an operation like Epic Fury? Well, on March 1st, 2026, the day after the strikes, Iran's military wasn't defeated on some battlefield. Their hundreds of thousands of IRGC soldiers, their ballistic missile silos, their massive drone fleet, all of it was still there. But it was orphaned. It was this unmoored, totally ineffective body with no brain to give it a single command. In all the chaos,
This panicked, fragmented interim leadership council gets thrown together. But behind closed doors, the surviving mid-level commanders were starting to have this terrifying realization. They weren't fighting a conventional war against jets and bombs. They were fighting an algorithm built from their own compromised data.
So here's the bottom line. We're in a new era of asymmetrical warfare. And in this new era, your stockpile of ballistic missiles, your thousands of soldiers, your impenetrable mountain fortresses, it's all meaningless. Because if your enemy knows exactly what room you sleep in, your army doesn't even matter.